As the golden sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah and Liam stood together beneath an elegant arch, adorned with fresh flowers, surrounded by their loved ones. It was a day Sarah had dreamed of her entire life, a day that symbolizes love, trust, and a promise of forever. But hidden behind the radiant smiles and the vows exchanged was a secret that would destroy everything. Liam, her charming and seemingly devoted fiancé, wasn't the man she thought he was. And, as the evening unfolded, that dark truth would come to light in the most tragic way imaginable. Sarah had always dreamed of her wedding day. Growing up in a quiet town with modest beginnings, she worked hard to build a future she could be proud of. Every step she took was a fight against the odds, but Sarah never gave up. Her determination led her to success, and with Liam by her side, her life felt complete. Liam was everything Sarah had ever wanted: charming, supportive, and ambitious. Their love story seemed perfect, a beacon of hope that hard work and love could conquer anything. Together, they planned a wedding that symbolized their journey, elegant, joyful, and filled with promise. As they exchanged vows in front of family and friends, the future seemed bright. But beneath the surface, small cracks were beginning to form. Sarah met Liam 5 years ago on a crisp autumn evening at a charity gala she almost didn't attend. She had been buried in work, trying to meet deadlines, but a friend convinced her to take a break. Dressed in her best, Sarah had walked into the grand hall, completely unaware that her life was about to change. Liam, standing by the bar with his easy charm and captivating smile, introduced himself with a confidence that immediately drew her in. He was everything Sarah had ever wanted in a partner: charismatic, ambitious, and endlessly attentive. Over time, they became inseparable. Liam supported Sarah's dreams and encouraged her when she doubted herself. Together, they seemed unstoppable, building a life that felt like the perfect blend of love and partnership. They bought a house, started planning trips, and even adopted a rescue dog named Bella, who became the heart of their home. When Liam proposed under a starlit sky on their anniversary, Sarah was overjoyed. Tears streamed down her face as he slipped the ring onto her finger, promising her a future filled with love and devotion. The months that followed were a whirlwind of wedding planning, each detail carefully chosen to reflect the love they shared. Sarah's childhood best friend Emma was by her side through it all, helping pick out dresses, tasting cake samples, and laughing over late-night wine and wedding Pinterest boards. Emma had been a constant in Sarah's life since elementary school. They were more like sisters than friends, sharing every milestone and heartbreak over the years. When Sarah asked Emma to be her maid of honor, Emma had tearfully agreed, promising to make the day as special as possible. But what Sarah didn't know was that beneath Emma's supportive facade lay something far more complicated. Emma had been battling feelings of envy and resentment for years, feelings she buried deep, hidden behind a smile. And Liam, the man Sarah believed was her soulmate, had been hiding a dark secret of his own. He and Emma shared a connection that went beyond friendship, a connection that had grown into something forbidden. As the wedding day approached, Liam and Emma found themselves caught in a dangerous web of deceit. Their secret meetings, stolen glances, and whispered words were a betrayal so profound that it would destroy everything Sarah had worked so hard to build. Throughout the months leading up to the wedding, Sarah began to notice subtle signs that something wasn't quite right. At first, they were fleeting moments, so small they were easy to dismiss. Liam had always been attentive and loving, but recently he seemed distracted. He would laugh at something on his phone, but quickly lock the screen when she walked into the room. When she asked what was so funny, he'd shrug it off, claiming it was a work email or a text from an old friend. At first, Sarah chalked it up to stress. After all, planning a wedding was no small feat, and Liam had been juggling long hours at work while trying to help with the preparations. But as the weeks went by, those small moments started to pile up. Liam began taking phone calls late at night, stepping outside to talk in hushed tones. When Sarah asked who it was, he'd wave it off, saying it was just his boss or a last-minute work emergency. Then there was Emma. Sarah had always trusted her completely. They had shared every secret, every dream, and every milestone since they were kids. But lately, Emma had seemed off. There were moments when she appeared distant, her usual bubbly energy replaced with a quiet nervousness. Sarah noticed Emma would fidget with her phone more than usual, glancing at it like she was waiting for something or someone. One evening, while reviewing seating arrangements, Sarah caught Emma and Liam sharing a look across the room. It was quick, so quick that Sarah almost convinced herself she imagined it. But something about it lingered in her mind. It wasn't the friendly camaraderie she was used to seeing between them. It was different, intimate almost. Another time, during a cake tasting session, Emma mentioned a work function Liam had supposedly attended. Sarah's stomach tightened. She hadn't heard anything about it. "When was that?" she asked, trying to keep her tone casual. Emma's face paled slightly, and she quickly backtracked. "Oh, maybe I'm confusing the dates. It must have been someone else." It was a small slip, barely noticeable, but it planted a seed of doubt in Sarah's mind, a seed that grew every time she noticed Liam and Emma exchanging subtle glances or abruptly changing the subject when she walked into a room. As the wedding day arrived, her unease only deepened. During the ceremony, as she walked down the aisle, her eyes locked with Liam's, and for a moment, everything felt right. But then she glanced at Emma, standing beside him as her maid of honor. The look in Emma's eyes was hard to read. Was it pride, nervousness, guilt? At the reception, the tension became even harder to ignore. Liam's smile seemed forced at times, faltering when he thought no one was watching. Emma, usually the life of the party, seemed distracted, her laughter sounding hollow. And then there was the moment that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. She was talking with a guest when she glanced across the room and saw Liam and Emma standing close together near the bar. Liam leaned in slightly, whispering something to Emma. She laughed softly, her hand brushing his arm. The exchange lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to send Sarah's heart racing. She turned away quickly, trying to steady her breathing. As the night wore on, the small cracks in her perfect day began to widen. Every glance between Liam and Emma felt heavier, every awkward moment harder to ignore. And though Sarah didn't know it yet, her suspicions were about to be confirmed in the most devastating way possible. Guests were scattered across the elegant venue, sipping champagne and congratulating Sarah and Liam on their perfect day. For Sarah, the moment should have been blissful. Her dream wedding had come to life, surrounded by friends, family, and the man she loved. Later in the evening, during the couple's first dance, Sarah glanced over Liam's shoulder and saw Emma watching them. Her expression was soft, almost wistful, but there was something else, something darker, lurking in her eyes. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a bright smile when she noticed Sarah looking. But the image stuck with Sarah, lingering like a shadow in her mind. The glance between them haunted Sarah, growing into the centerpiece of her unease. She wanted to confront Liam, but interruptions kept pulling them apart. By the time the cake was cut, her suspicions weighed heavily, and she found herself scanning the room for clues. "It's just your imagination," she told herself, gripping a table for support. But deep down, she knew something was off. When Liam excused himself with a quick kiss, promising to grab a drink but never returning, Sarah's unease deepened, turning into dread. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Sarah scanned the room, her smile still plastered on as she greeted relatives and friends, but her eyes darted between faces, searching for Liam. He wasn't at the bar, nor was he with his groomsmen, who were laughing uproariously near the dance floor. He was probably outside getting some air, she told herself, or maybe stuck in a conversation with an uncle. But as the minutes ticked by, her excuses started to feel flimsy. And then she noticed Emma. Or rather, she noticed Emma wasn't there. Sarah's heart gave a little jolt. Emma had been by her side all evening, her ever-supportive maid of honor, flitting between making speeches and ensuring guests were having a good time. But now, Emma was nowhere to be seen. The last time Sarah had spotted her, she'd been near the bar, standing with Liam. Her stomach churned, but she told herself it was just a coincidence. She began searching the venue, her steps deliberate as the party's buzz faded into the background. The bar was empty. So was the photo booth. Her chest tightened as she stepped into the dimly lit garden, her pulse quickening with every step. "Liam?" she called, but the garden was silent except for rustling leaves. Re-entering the reception, she forced a smile and casually asked a cousin, "Have you seen Liam?" The answer only fueled her unease. Moving briskly through the crowd, she spotted the private lounge and pushed open the door. The dimly lit room seemed empty, until she heard a faint shuffle behind the curtains. Her pulse thundered as she stepped closer, hand trembling, as she reached for the fabric. But before she could pull it back, the door creaked open behind her. She spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. It was Emma. "Sarah!" Emma exclaimed, her face flushed, her voice a little too bright. "What are you doing here?" Sarah blinked, caught off guard. "I could ask you the same thing," she said, her voice edged with suspicion. Emma hesitated for a fraction of a second before forcing a laugh. "I was just, looking for my phone. I think I left it here earlier." Sarah's eyes narrowed. Something about Emma's tone didn't sit right. She looked around the room again, her gaze lingering on the curtains. "Have you seen Liam?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Emma shook her head quickly, too quickly. "No, I haven't." "Maybe he's outside," she said, stepping closer to Sarah, as if trying to steer her toward the door. The unease Sarah had felt all evening surged as she studied Emma's guarded expression. Without a word, she pushed past her and returned to the reception, scanning the crowd until she saw Liam slipping through a side door, with Emma close behind. Her breath caught as she froze, a mix of fear and anger rising in her chest. She forced herself to move, weaving through the party toward the door. Inside the dim hallway, faint voices carried from a nearby room. Her heart pounded as she pressed her ear against the door, catching Liam's urgent tone and Emma's soft replies. Sarah's heart shattered. She swung the door open to find Liam and Emma standing too close, their guilt written on their faces. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Sarah, it's not what it looks like," Liam stammered, stepping forward. "Not what it looks like," she snapped, her anger boiling over. "On my wedding night, you're here with my best friend," Emma sobbed, trying to speak, but Sarah cut her off. "You've both been lying to me. Do you even realize what you've done?" The weight of betrayal pressed down on Sarah, her fury consuming her. Her eyes landed on a heavy vase nearby. Without thinking, she grabbed it. "Sarah, wait!" Liam began, panic in his voice, but it was too late. With a cry of rage, she hurled the vase, striking Liam with a sickening crack. He collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. As the room fell into a suffocating silence, Emma screamed, her hands flying to her mouth as she backed away, trembling. Sarah stood frozen, the broken shards of the vase scattered at her feet, her chest heaving as the weight of what she had done began to sink in. For a moment, the room was silent except for Emma's sobs and the faint sound of music from the reception. Sarah's vision blurred as she stared at Liam's motionless body, her mind struggling to process the scene before her. Everything had fallen apart. The betrayal, the confrontation, and now the violence. It was all too much to bear. As the reality of her actions crashed over her, Sarah sank to her knees, her hands trembling as tears streamed down her face. The night that was supposed to mark the beginning of her forever had become a nightmare, one she could never escape. Sarah stood motionless, the broken vase at her feet, Liam's motionless body before her, and Emma's frantic sobs filling the air. The weight of what had just unfolded pressed against her chest like a vice, but the emotional storm within her was far from over. It was as if the betrayal had unlocked a floodgate of memories and emotions, each one slamming into her with the force of a hurricane. Her mind spiraled, dragging her back through the years. She saw herself walking into the charity gala where she'd met Liam for the first time. He had been so confident, so kind. His smile had melted away the walls she had built around herself after years of heartbreak. That night, she had let herself believe in love again. Flash. Their first date at the small Italian restaurant down the street from her apartment, where Liam had ordered tiramisu for two, but ended up eating most of it himself while laughing at her mock outrage. The way he had held her hand as they walked home, promising her a future filled with laughter. The night Liam proposed under the stars, promising forever, felt like a cruel joke now. Every memory was tainted, every promise a lie. And Emma, her best friend, had been part of the betrayal all along. "You've destroyed everything," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with rage. Emma sobbed, her hands trembling. "Sarah, please, it's not what you think." "Not what I think," Sarah snapped, her eyes blazing. "I saw you. Don't insult me by pretending it wasn't what it clearly was." Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She couldn't explain it, couldn't justify it. All she could do was stare at the man she had once loved, now lying lifeless on the floor. The distant sound of laughter and music from the reception felt like a cruel mockery of the chaos inside. Love and trust had vanished, replaced by betrayal and blood. Detectives arrived swiftly, piecing together the night's events. The shattered vase, blood-stained carpet, and testimonies revealed the betrayal that had spiraled into violence. Sarah sat in the interrogation room, her wedding dress wrinkled and stained. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered. "I just lost control." The trial became a media frenzy. The prosecution argued Sarah's jealousy led to deadly rage, while the defense portrayed her as a woman pushed to the brink by betrayal. Tearfully, Sarah admitted, "I didn't plan to hurt him. I wasn't thinking clearly." After weeks of testimony, Sarah was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison, eligible for parole after 7. She stood silently as the verdict was read. The dreams of her once perfect life replaced by the harsh reality of her actions. The tragedy left scars that would never heal, a grim reminder of the devastating consequences of betrayal and unchecked emotions. Sarah sat alone in her small prison cell, the cold, concrete walls closing in around her. The vibrant life she had once built, filled with dreams of love and happiness, was now a distant memory. In rare moments of clarity, Sarah thought of Liam, the man who had once promised her forever. Those memories clashed with the image of him lying lifeless, his blood staining her wedding dress. Emma, burdened by guilt, walked through her small town a shadow of herself, whispers of judgment following her. Though she avoided legal consequences, her actions had set the tragedy in motion. Liam's family was shattered, struggling to cope with their loss. Their once warm home now felt hollow, a painful reminder of what had been stolen. What began as a celebration of love became a cautionary tale of betrayal and heartbreak, leaving scars on everyone connected. For Sarah, one impulsive act changed her life forever. For Emma, regret became her constant companion. And for Liam, the cost of betrayal was his life. This story is a stark reminder of how fragile trust can be and the devastating consequences of unchecked emotions. One moment of anger can alter lives forever. If this story moved you, subscribe for more true crime tales that explore the darkest sides of human nature. Like, share, and tell us, what would you have done in Sarah's place? Stay safe and trust wisely.